Hi everyone, it's Annie here from Tech for Good Southwest podcast, where we explore how technology can be harnessed to create positive social change across our communities, inspiring people, preserving the planet and creating places. Today, I'm joined by Alastair, founder of MyCoPilot.ai, which is all about addressing digital addiction and mental health and supporting individuals with ADHD who are struggling with digital overuse and real-time interventions to help manage distractions and build healthier habits. And hopefully I've given a good summary of that, Alastair. But welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Annie. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Great. So from what I can see, MyCoPilot.ai is at the intersection of kind of neurodiversity, mental health, digital well-being, and particularly inclusive tech design, which is obviously very much at the heart of Tech for Good landscape. Can you tell us a little bit about the challenges that you had seen and what you're using MyCoPilot AI to address?
Yeah, sure. Massive question, but let me start with where we kind of started. Because originally, I think I've been working on this idea for probably, it's got to be 6-7 years now. So I started building things for myself because I had an experience long before I was diagnosed where I'd stand at the bottom of the stairs in my house in executive dysfunction overwhelm, and I wouldn't know which room to walk at, and I'd take a step one way, and then I'd stutter, and I'd take a step another way, and then I'd put a step on the stairs, and then I'd be like, oh, what am I doing? Where am I going? I just lost the plot. So I built myself a really dumb little app that was just a sort of a roulette wheel spinner that let me kind of pick something to do. And I didn't know it at the time, but that's totally ADHD, what I've just described. That's a really core experience for people with ADHD and executive dysfunction. So I built that. And then I was also struggling with smartphone addiction because they are supremely addictive little things. And I could bang on about the neuroscience there for hours. And I had one day where I had an app blocker spin up in front of me, and I saw it and thought, what a useless screen this is. It doesn't do anything. If only I had my spinner right here. And then I thought, oh, well, I'll put those two together. And I started the journey that became MyCoPilot. And then I got diagnosed with ADHD kind of about a year after starting that journey. And I was like, oh, this isn't about particular smartphone addictions. It's not about gambling. It's not about shopping. It's not about porn addiction. It's not about any of these specific things. It's those of us with ADHD struggling with this. So then we kind of shifted the whole business to be about ADHD because we struggle with executive dysfunction. So our dopamine is squiff in our brains anyway. Phones literally manipulate that part of our brain. They make everything worse. They give people ADHD symptoms even if they don't have underlying ADHD. They're that impactful. So if you've got ADHD and you've got a smartphone, your chances of getting on with the things that you really want and need to do it's a challenge. It's a real struggle. And MyCoPilot, to be honest, was built because I need that. And I looked for it and I thought, oh, there must be an app out there for this. And I could not find anything. So I thought, okay, I've got a tech background. I've got an AI background. This was before ChatGPT, so there was no AI at the time. I wish there was, but it wasn't ready yet. AI wasn't good enough at that point. I just thought, I've got to give this a go because I'm dying here. I'm struggling with my own day-to-day functioning. I need something. And that, I trained as a therapist as well. And I was like, oh, this is a kind of a better impact than just doing therapy one-on-one. I can help more people. So all of those things combined, I've been doing this now for 3 years, something like that, full time.
So you just talked about obviously the sort of the symptoms of ADHD and how the kind of digital overuse can be really challenging. But you also mentioned actually that smartphone overuse or digital overuse is actually presenting almost similar symptoms. What are those?
So I can get really neuroscience-y on this, like really briefly, if that's cool.
Only if we can understand it, of course.
All right.
Yeah.
So the way I understand it is there's a bit of your brain in your limbic system, which is kind of like your old mammalian emotional center. So not your higher functioning sort of human thinking and planning parts, but your emotional reactivity. And it sits there and it essentially, one of its jobs is to distract you when you're overwhelmed. Because back in the day, evolving, if you were stressed or distressed and a bit over the top, it'd be quite a good idea to go and distract yourself to let your body calm down.
Yeah.
while you're, fletching an arrow or tanning a hide or whatever. So that part of the brain literally tries to distract you from your overwhelmed feelings. And that is a physical state of overwhelm. It's trying to calm you down. Now, we live in an environment that is constantly stressing and distressing. So our nervous systems aren't really built for the modern world, which means we're always in that state, which means that part of the brain is almost always trying to get us to do something distracting because it's trying to look after us and it's trying to help us calm down. Now, that part of the brain is called the nucleus accumbens, and it's highly dopamine sensitive, and it's one of the components, if I understand it right, it's part of the basal ganglia, I think, or it's very near it at least, that is highly dopamine sensitive, and it's implicated in all the ADHD stuff because ADHD is dopamine dysregulation in large part. So the part that when dysregulated gives you ADHD symptoms is the part that's trying to distract you from stress or distress. So those things are all kind of in the same place doing the same thing. So is it ADHD or is it ADHD symptoms, or is it even worth drawing a distinction? So some of us have ADHD from early childhood. It's been induced, it's been maybe trauma induced, maybe it's genetic. For whatever reason, we've had it all our lives. So we're very susceptible to it anyway because our brains are already kind of dysregulating there. But if you come at it and you're fine through childhood and nothing ever goes wrong in your life, I mean, those of us who have such wonderful experiences, let's just say there is someone like that. Even if you pick up a phone, because it's that distraction loop, it will draw you in. And there's a whole other bit of neuroscience why when we're dysregulated in dopamine, we actually hunt more dopamine, weirdly, rather than stopping doing it. So if we hunt more dopamine, it's like a vicious cycle. That means that even if you didn't have ADHD before, you're beginning to dysregulate that part of your brain, which means that you look like you have ADHD. So it's really hard to tell with some people whether they're sort of intrinsic ADHD or induced ADHD. And there's a lot of people, if you take their phones away, after about 2 weeks, their ADHD symptoms go away. So that's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see, and that's something we're all aware of in terms of that kind of dysregulation piece and that kind of over addiction. So tell us about MyCoPilot.ai in terms of what exactly it is and what stage you're at now. So you mentioned earlier it's been about 3 years since you had the initial idea and you've been working on this.
Yeah, I've been working on this for 3 years, and I've been going through the sort of the startup journey because I started it with a lot of naivety and was like, yes, I can make something by, September. And then I tried, and it's, you've got to raise money to pay for things and keep a business running, and you spend a lot of time raising that. So as a process, building a startup was an eye-opening experience, especially because I have raging ADHD. So my executive function is, challenged anyway. So I'm fighting through like a swamp to pull this off.
Were you working already? So you're already in a job at the time you decided to start pulling this together?
When I started, I had just enough backing to quit and do it full time for a bit. And basically, I don't quite know how, but I seem to have hustled money when I needed it at the right points somehow from all sorts of random different sources, often not knowing. I've been at 3 figures in the bank account, I think 4 or 5 times now. And somehow it always comes together. So I kind of take it as the universe wants me to do this and has just got my back. But I still have to learn the hard way how to actually build a startup. So that process is very real. What MyCoPilot is as a product, there's always been a really consistent thread. And that is this singular little insight that I kind of was describing a minute ago, which is, that spinner that I created, right? That kind of represents all of the apps that we install in hope that we want to use. It's the app that reminds me to do my exercise. It's the app that has my meditation in it. It's the app that has my to-do list in it. I install these things because I've got ADHD. I've forgotten I installed them 2 weeks later. They're just gone out of my mind. I just forget that I opened them, and then I get a bill, a year later for my yearly subscription. I'm like, oh, crap. I forgot I installed that thing. I haven't used it. So the problem is you can have the best app in the world, but if no one's using it and you're not going to it, then what good is that? And then on the flip side, you have things like app blockers where I'm like, okay, I know that I don't need to be watching TikTok at 2 a.m. That's no one's definition of their best life. It's certainly not mine, but I still find myself on TikTok at 2 a.m. I can install an app blocker that stops me, but they tend to be really dumb. So they just jump in and they go, no, thou shalt not watch TikTok at 2 a.m., you moral failure. And I'm like, I don't need that. Thank you very much. I need support. I need some help. So those two things need to come together. And that's MyCoPilot. It's that moment where we step in proactively when you need us. You know, you define your rules and then we step in, but we bring the support with it. But there's also another little component there, which is that I think a lot of support apps are built by engineers and they sound good on paper and they kind of make sense to our conscious mind, our human thinking, because, you know, we're going to, I don't know, something like, oh, I have to do X number of steps before I can use this app. It's like, okay, in theory, that's good. Or it gray screens it. In theory, that's a good idea. But human beings are weirdly contrary creatures. We often resist the support that we have. So, you know, from my psychotherapy, there's like some really deep learnings about working with addiction, which is what we're talking about here. You know, we may not think of ourselves as phone addicts, but it's that neurology that's being hijacked by our phones. So it kind of is relevant to talk about it as addiction. And the thing is, if you antagonize addiction as a therapist, you lose. You will get discarded and thrown away. They won't come to you for support anymore. You have to be an ally and you have to work with failure. You have to, you know, people relapse all the time. So MyCoPilot doesn't just step in at the right moment. It doesn't just offer you like productivity suggestions about what else you can do, which is the first idea. There's the missing glue, which is psychological, which is we have to regulate you. We have to wake up your human part, the bit that plans, the bit that actually has like, you know, your identity. Like, I always talk about running, right? No one really likes running when they start running. People like running when they've been a runner for a while and they get that it gives you dopamine. But pretty much no one starts running because they're like, oh, I really love running. They're running because they want to be one of the hot people, the attractive people, the fit people, because they run. Runners are attractive and fit. It's that identity hook. So when you reach for TikTok or whatever it is that distracts you, Insta, YouTube, shopping, or something else, you're not really in any part of your higher consciousness. You're in a limbic system overwhelm where you're trying to regulate your physical energy. We have to meet that psychology and kind of wake up the rest of the bits of your brain that can make decisions that will help you manage your regulation. They will remind you of your identity. Like, who do you really want to be? What is your best life? What does your day tomorrow look like if you get good night's sleep versus if you stay up till 4 a.m. scrolling TikTok? We have to wake that up so that you have a chance of counteracting that really deep limbic system urge, that emotional urge that your brain has to try and soothe you. It's just trying to look after you. But we need to kind of wake up the rest of your brain as well. So there's like a psychological regulation, and that's where the AI kicks in. So our AI is tuned to be really supportive and compassionate. It knows about addiction psychology. It steps in with the sorts of insights that a therapist might use. Like, it's not therapy, because I don't think an AI is really good enough to be a therapist, but it does compassion and advocacy and support really well. In fact, it does it better, according to the research, than your average therapist. So that's very promising. So you can build a relationship with your AI where you get the feeling of support. That's enough to trick you out of your stress, distress, bored, dopamine hunting loop. And then we try and wake up your prefrontal cortex, which is like your identity, your planning, all the things that you need to do, the want to do, the life you're yearning to lead. So that process is psychological, and that's kind of where the magic source really lives in MyCoPilot, because that's not trivial, and you're not going to get a random engineer building that.
Yeah, and so presumably there is obviously a kind of setup process, which is very much about MyCoPilot learning about you, what your kind of wonderful life might look like that you have the ambition for. So it's trying to keep you on your own track, your own journey. Is that a fair description?
So as with anything with AI, really, the more knowledge it has about you, the better it can support you. And of course, that means that there's a trust, ethical, privacy issue. So, you know, a big part of MyCoPilot is about trading on trust. Like, we're there to support you. We're not Facebook. We're not Meta. We're not just trying to rinse your data and sell it. We are trying to help you. So that's what makes us a bit different from, you know, leaning on, say, OpenAI for a bit of therapy support. You can, like, it works. But they don't come to you, and B, how much do you really want to tell it? Whereas MyCoPilot, it's all about that. That's what we do. So that kind of process of being present and support it. It requires information. It has to learn you, and it has to learn you, not just what you say, but how you respond to different interventions. Some people need to kick up the arse, and some people, you really don't want to do that. You need to give them lots of loving encouragement and support. So everyone's a bit different. So an AI that supports that has to tune in and learn about that. So right now, we're actually working on our next version, which is a bit better at onboarding and is a bit more sophisticated at kind of building insight into who you are. Less forms, less stuff for you to fill out. Because the first version, you actually had to go and tell it the things that you wanted to do through forms. And now we're moving to a model where you can kind of just have a chat with the AI and say, hey, can you remind me of this? And can you do this?
Yeah,
and it kind of builds the backend. You want to tell it what you want. If it really doesn't know something about that, it needs to ask you for clarification. But ideally, it should do its best effort and get on with it. And then you can always tweak it, error correct.
So you talked about the next version. So where are you now in terms of it? Can people sign up for it now? Are you still in a kind of phase of development and testing? Yeah.
Bit of both. So we do have a live version for Android, and that was the first version that we released publicly for public test. That was super useful. We did an impact assessment, and the numbers came back really nice. If we did that at scale and got those numbers, then even the NHS would be looking at us and going, oh, that's very tasty. So very promising impact. We got a lot of really interesting feedback from users. So we had a really high response rate in terms of feedback. Something like 30-40% of people actually gave us written feedback on the app, which is an insanely high rate of response. So it's really clear to me from talking to people how much people want this and how desperately it's needed. They also told us, hey, this is where I'm struggling with it. This is where it kind of doesn't quite work yet. This is where it's a little bit over the top. This is where it's not really stepping in properly. So we've taken all that feedback. So we're building this version to kind of address the core concerns that came up with that first version. And I haven't really publicized that first version because I just realized, given the feedback that we had, it made more sense for us to spend the resources that we've got implementing the things that we now know users really want. And let's get that back out the door. And then we're going to do a really big marketing push. So it hasn't really been worth doing the marketing push while we're implementing that first, really core public feedback. So we're kind of at a point where, the honest answer is, if I had lots of resources, if we had lots of funders coming in and giving us plenty of money so that we could hire the devs to do all of the feedback nice and fast, we would be moving faster. But it's a very challenging environment for startups right now. Investors are quite scared. A lot of them actually don't have capital to allocate very easily. It's all tied up in existing investments that they can't get back because no one's buying and selling startups at the moment. So you have to be in an extremely good position in terms of revenue and stuff like that. You need really good metrics to persuade investors to hop in right now. And so we looked at our metrics. We know what they are. And it just made sense at this moment in time to go, okay, we know the next one to build. For the money that we've got right now, let's do that. Let's put it back out there.
Yeah, nice.
There's no reason to believe that our numbers won't get better. They'll be at least as good as the last ones. So if they're improved, that's kind of they're kind of like the chips that I'm going to put on the next table. I need table stakes for the bigger investors. I need to get them the metrics that they need. So I'm kind of in that process of juggling the priorities to make sure that we do something for users and really help people and make it attractive to further investment.
Yeah, which is such a challenge of any particularly impact-focused business. It's obviously been an intensive development process. What kind of support have you had along the way? Have there been programs that you've been part of? Just interested on your reflections at this point. And I know you've got some plans for this year as well.
Yeah, so I think I was lucky in the first instance in that kind of a bit of privilege, to be quite honest. I've got a house, which means that I can kind of relax a little bit about my personal stability. A little bit of family money, and I happen to have some friends who kind of made a bit of money in crypto. So my very first kind of bootstrap, I credit cards and mortgages. I've got a house. So I was able to lean on my own privilege to get started. And the reality is that the first sort of 150K was probably that cobbled together from a little bit from the family, a little bit of my own credit, couple of friends just loaning relatively small amounts from a business perspective, but impactful amounts for an individual to loan. And that got us to the point where I had enough kind of proven to join Set Squared and have kind of something a bit more than, an idea on the back of a napkin. I'd kind of worked it out a little bit. I got some proof points. I did a bunch of user research to start with. So that basically paid for a load of user research and me, frankly, learning how to start a startup, because it's very easy to make mistakes. And I probably lost, I'd say half of that money went on things that ended up being not useful whatsoever. I just made a mistake. I got an agency. I spent it on developers that gave me nothing at all. So
this was the kind of initial, I guess, Kickstarter that you had from sort of family and friends. The Set Squared program
that was like the bootstrap round.
I was going to ask the Set Squared program. That wasn't financial input. That was more strategic kind of business.
It didn't put money on the table, but it did give me access. So that was the next phase. Really, was the Set Squared phase, and a couple of other incubators like Barclays Eagle Labs, like their first sort of growth programs.
Great.
We got onto them and they provided mentorship, seminars, and a desk space at a really good reduced price. So I had a place to go. And this was really important. Like for me as ADHD, if I'm working sometimes I need to work from home because I need that space. But sometimes I need to go to the startup office because actually I need to feel like a founder. I need my identity of like, I'm a founder. I better do founder things. Like that's how my brain knows what to do. Because if I'm at home, I'm like, oh, I really should be doing this. But at home, I'm in that mess needs tidying up and I need to cook dinner. And it's all these other things that get in the way. Going to the office, having a place where other startup founders are, talking with other founders, talking with other businesses there, that puts me in the mode of like, oh, I'm a startup founder. I better live up to this identity. It's the same thing as running, right? As I said earlier on. Like I started that not necessarily enjoying all of those things, but I wanted that identity. I need that identity to drive my motivation because that's how ADHD motivation works. So that was super important. It didn't put money on the table, but it created that network. And that helped us land our first grant from Innovate UK. So we got a grant that was aimed at neurodiverse founders. It wasn't aimed at neurodiverse founders. It was aimed at like disadvantaged founders. So that could have been neurodiversity, that could have been disabilities, that could have been non-male white demographics who often struggle much more to raise angel investment.
One of my next questions was going to be around, do you think that sort of startup ecosystem, and particularly with the lens of kind of impact businesses, is accessible for people starting out who don't have the experience, the networks, or the capital? You said, you kind of well said.
I didn't have experience, networks. I have a bit of privilege in my personal life where I happen to have a little bit of support in just money terms, which was like just enough to get going. And this is the bit that I really struggle with the ecosystem of startups, because I was even at an event about like women in startups or women angel investors. And they had two talks on stage. And one of them was from a well-established angel syndicate or VC fund. I can't remember exactly, but somewhere in the crossover. And they were talking about how you need to invest using metrics and evidence. And everyone cheered and clapped. And everyone was like, yes, quite right. Very sensible. And then they had a talk about, hey, we need to get more women founders and, underrepresented founders into the mix. And we need to like open our ideas and look at like, actually women founders do better statistically than male founders. And yet they only get like some single figure percentage of investment, which is insane. So they were talking about that and everyone's clapping that. And I'm like, those two things are completely at odds, because to actually get the first evidence that got me even onto Set Squared, which is like your basic incubator, I still needed to spend about 150 grand. So if you're an underrepresented founder who doesn't happen to have a mate who made money on crypto and, a little bit from the family and a mortgage and credit cards that they can lean on, I honestly don't know how they would be able to really go. You certainly wouldn't be able to do it full time. So I kind of see the community as like, there's a lot of well-meaning stuff spoken, but I think the raw reality of startups is that you can look back on it and see how you did it in the way that everyone said you would do it. Like there is a kind of path, but you can't plan for it. you can't really plan that path because you won't have enough resources. You just have to kind of make it up and hustle and take opportunities and make mistakes and see where you go. That costs because you're going to do things that actually end up not creating value. They're the bet that you made, but it doesn't work.
Yeah,
You're like, that was kind of a dead end. Or like, So I think it's really tough. And I mean, right now, I think it's tough for any pre-seed startups because the economic environment, people are really fleeing to, I kind of think of it a bit like racing. You know, like, I don't know if you know much about racing, but you kind of have test days where you put a motorbike or a car on track. And the big sponsors will sponsor Ferrari and Mercedes, the guys who are already getting the fastest lap times. And then the secondary sponsors will sponsor the cars at the back of the grid on the basis that if they give them some money, they can get towards the front of the grid and then they can be bought out by the really big sponsors.
Yeah.
And then in the background, you've got teams who are in the paddock who aren't on track, basically going, hey, we've got a go-kart and we've got some guys who know how to make this. You know, and we've got a racer who's awesome. Like she's been winning loads of, go-kart stuff. We need some money to get this thing onto track to get some race times. And that's like your pre-seed world. Yeah. You haven't really got onto track. You don't have any time lapse. You don't have any evidence. So you're not going to get those big sponsors. That first bit, since kind of the collapse of post-COVID investment, that first bit, there just aren't a lot of investors who are willing to invest in people standing in the paddock who want to get on track. Yeah. They do exist, but I think there's also an increasing number of people who want to be entrepreneurs because we're looking at the world of work post-COVID going, not sure this really works for me. So there's a lot of people who want it. There's a lot of people with really good ideas, but there is far less free money. Like if you were doing this 10 years ago, there was just more free money kicking around.
Yeah.
And
the kind of
just
the right support. So, yeah.
And also Set Squared, they've been absolutely amazing, but there's a really big shift in Bristol innovation scene right now. And there's a lot of people moving jobs, moving position. There's a lot of re-shifting. I'm not sure if Set Squared even offer a early doors incubator anymore. Like I think they're more focusing on scale ups. I don't know that for sure. That's just sort of what I'm picking up in my own networking. So I want to be really supportive of early stage founders. But the reality is I'm like, this is going to be really, really hard. Yeah. It just is. And I think you need to really acknowledge that and go for it anyway. So I have two little rules whenever anyone says to me, I'm thinking of doing a startup. First off, is there anything else you can do that you would enjoy? If the answer to that is yes, then it's kind of like, well, do that. Because startups take a vast amount of your emotional energy and like people tell you in advance what the roller coaster is and they go, it's a real roller coaster. It's going to completely knock you sideways, left, right,
yeah,
center.
For sure.
And you go, and then you actually experience it and it's like,
yeah.
This is insane. Like, what am I doing? And I've gone through the number of times where I've thought, what am I doing? I'm like, oh my God, I just need to quit and do something else. Like, that's not an insignificant amount of my experience. So the second question I ask is, if you don't do it, are you going to regret this till the end of your days?
Yeah.
Like, is this always going to sit with you as something you're going to regret? If you're not going to regret it and you have something else you can do that you would do entirely, don't be a startup founder. It's completely nuts. Yeah. But if you answer yes to both of those questions, then it doesn't matter that there's not a lot out there in terms of money. You've got to do it anyway. Because you have to do it at that point. You don't even have a choice. You have to give it a go.
And it was just perfect in terms of my next question, which was around doing a business for the first time that's so closely aligned with a personal mission. Do you think that's kind of, that helps? But I guess, when you talk about balancing energy, you talk about some of your own well-being and obviously kind of managing your own ADHD as well. That must have been like, so, yeah. So yeah, interested to know in terms of how you've been able to get to this point and manage your own energy, as well as there's a core underlying driver here, which is what you want to get out in the world for everybody else.
I'm not completely convinced that I'm a good role model for that, to be honest. I did the thing where I kind of sacrificed my health in a pretty big way for this. And, I hear people advising startups, like on LinkedIn, you get, serial entrepreneurs giving their advice. And they always say, don't sacrifice your health. I did, and it's costing me. Like it's really costing me. But I don't know how else I could have done it, because with ADHD, I only have so many spoons a day. Like, I can't run a startup and look after my house. I just can't do it. And I live by myself. I have a cat, so the cat isn't tidying anything and isn't cooking me dinner on the odd occasion.
Need to sort that out.
I know. I need to train her up better, don't I? So the reality is that my house has been a catastrophic mess for the last 3 years. And
but then that's about letting things go, isn't it? Exactly.
I've completely given myself permission. I said, look, because shame and judgment are the biggest pain points that can just completely scupper you. I think the biggest thing, if you're going to do a startup, the biggest thing is to give yourself mad compassion, especially if you're doing it with a ball and chain like executive dysfunction, or let's say you're maybe a bit on the autism spectrum, the social skills. Like, I have prosopagnosia. I just can't recognize faces out of the context that I know them in. So I am constantly meeting people and networking with people that I really should know, and I just don't. And I have vast numbers of awkward conversations. And I've just got to the point where I just say to people, listen, it's great to meet you. If we meet again, I won't recognize you. I'm really sorry. I've loved this. If it happens again, please don't take it personally. I'm just upfront about it, because I'm like, well, why pretend? Just turn up, be authentic. It's easier to be authentic now, I think, as well, especially
for sure,
because the conversation around neurodiversity, because the conversation around basically inclusivity, it's much more permissible. Like, it's even encouraged in a lot of spaces. So lean on it. Like, it's not an excuse, but just be honest with people and just turn up as you. And the reality is, there's only two types of people, I think, who really succeed at startups. And I think it just is the case. The first of them, and I got this from some American podcast startup guy, can't remember who, Kalichanik or something. And he said, Kalikanis, he said, the most underrated quality of any founder is vengeance. Because you're righting a wrong. You're like, I'm pissed off about something, and like, the world needs to be a different way. This is unacceptable.
Okay.
And that's the thing that gets you through on those bad days where you just want to quit. You're like, well, I'm not quitting, am I? Because I can't walk away. I cannot walk away from this because it pisses me off. And then the other lot that succeed are kind of your classic entrepreneurs. They just have lots of energy and are very good at running businesses. And if that's you, you're not really running the business because of the thing that you want to do. It's because running businesses is your baby thing. That's what you love doing. And you get a bunch of them who are just very, very good. They're operators, and they find good things to do, and they tend to build startups that then sell quite quickly. Whereas I think your passion-driven founders tend to not build and sell, but more build and make a lot of mistakes and stuff. So I think if you're not either doing something like with a bit of vengeance, which if you're in the tech for good world, you are. Right?
Yeah.
By definition, that's almost the definition of tech for good, right? You're not really attracting the people who go, I love running businesses. I'm going to do a financial planning tool or something. I mean, actually, that could be a tech for good, but you know what I mean, like cybersecurity or something.
So in terms of obviously we've talked about your journey, where you're at now, what it's taken from you to kind of get to this stage. So you have just got onto another program with Bethnal Green Ventures.
Yeah, so I actually got about halfway through where we got to. I got to the first grant, and then there's actually a whole bunch of stuff after that, which is like the first launch. Because it's taken me a long time to go through all of the seminars and repeat them all and really like learn. Because it's very easy to understand it when they tell you, hey, this is how to do a sales funnel, this is how to do marketing, this is how to make sure you have a good value proposition. There's a whole bunch of jargon and there's a whole bunch of stuff that you kind of have to get right. You just won't get it right to start with because you won't understand what it is you don't really understand. And then you go through it a few times, you're like, that makes sense now in retrospect. But it takes a few
Now
goes
I have to actually do it.
Yeah, so I've been quite lucky in that I've been part of Set Squared. I had the Barclays Eagle Lab. I had the Innovate Edge support from having the grant. So I had a bunch of places that were literally teaching me how to be an entrepreneur. There comes a point, and that's where we are now, where it's like, cool, I've done these now. I don't really need to be taught again how to do a basic value proposition or define an ideal customer profile. I kind of need to just roll sleeves up and just execute and get the damn thing done and out the door in the way that we need to next. So it becomes much more an operations game rather than a strategy game.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where, so we've got our first institutional investment with BGV, their Tech for Good fund, which is super awesome. And BGV are an awesome investor. They are so supportive. So I think we really lucked out there.
So they're not just an investor, are they? So that you go.
No, they're really hands-on. I hear a lot of people say you've got to be careful about the VCs that you get on board, and you really want people to support you. I think it's probably extra true for Tech for Good. I don't have experience with other VCs, so I can't speak to that, but I can say I've heard how important it is. So I'm very, very relieved that we've gone the way we've gone. Also got another grant, a little one, and then we got an angel, and that kind of completed our last round, and that's what we're working with now.
Amazing.
So this is kind of the point where we're like, right, we've done a lot of work on who we're aiming for, what the product really is. The only reason it's not scaling now is because resources and, juggling which exact bit to do. We still have to roll this version out. And the reality is I spend about 2/3 of my time running the business or trying to raise more funding so that I can spend 1/3 of my time developing.
So we want to flip that, don't we?
Ideally, if I could develop all the time, I would. But we just can't afford yet a real big team where people are working on things full time, like doing marketing full time, or like a dedicated developer working full time. That's probably like our next phase. So right now we just need to get this version out the door and show that our users really like it and build. We've got certain metrics we're aiming for in terms of user acquisition. So the next stage for us is great. This is kind of like, make or break territory where we need those numbers to show the bigger investors that we kind of need to get to the point actually where, given the size of team I've got, the number of users that we've got runs the business and covers all of our costs, so that the new investors we don't really need them.
Yeah.
But we can't grow without them.
Yeah.
And that's the bit where they start making sense, because it's a bit like the banks. If it's not raining, they'll give you an umbrella. And as soon as it's raining, they don't want to give you an umbrella. So if you go and ask for money with desperation or because you need it, it's very hard to get that bigger check. You have to already be running. It's got to already be working, really. And that's the stage we're at. We need to sort of take off out of this building preparation phase into, we're a going concern, and therefore we've got space to grow.
Yeah,
and that's more attractive. So that's a real inflection, which means that for me now, it isn't so much. It's not worth doing another kind of incubator round with anyone, because it'd just be the same info again and again and again. I'm like, cool, it's really valuable. It's good to be reminded of it, but it's not necessarily the best use of my time. Whereas now we're looking for an accelerator, really, that where we get real mentors who don't turn up and just say, hey, you should do this, but like kind of roll their sleeves up and go, great, let's solve it. Let's just work it out.
That's the dream, isn't it?
That'd be really nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a fantasy where if I had enough money and somehow this worked and the economics worked out, to create a startup incubator where you just literally had some marketing people. You had a marketing team, you had an operations team and a finance team that did those functions for the startup.
Yeah.
But the irony is, I think if you did that, then the founder wouldn't necessarily learn. And then when that got taken away, you just end up...
Depends how it's done.
Didn't have any foundations.
You never know. That could be a Tech for Good Southwest dream. You never know.
I'd love it. As a founder.
As an action.
That's my absolute yearning dream. Whether it's possible is a different question.
Yeah.
Like, the reality is that a lot of it is... I've heard it said that the true job of a founder is to transcend themselves. Like, your growth journey is the energy that the startup lives and breathes from. That's the oxygen. You are the incubator for this little baby. You're providing the blood dialysis, the oxygen, the warmth. It is your energy that you put into it. And if you're not willing to put that energy in, I'm not sure anyone's really built a startup there. Unless you've got oodles of cash, you can just hire people to do it.
You've got to have the vengeance, and you've got to have the experience of the energy, as you said.
Yeah, it's your energy. That's what builds it.
So, in terms of a question we always ask everybody, obviously, when they come on the podcast, is your kind of definition of what Tech for Good means.
Do you know what? I think that's the vengeance thing.
I like that. You said
really
that
is
earlier.
it, really.
Yeah.
Because
it's like, this isn't right. We got to do something.
You don't really have vengeance for bad. That's called revenge. That's a different thing all over again. Or something like that. I don't know. But vengeance is like, there's righting a wrong. The world should not be like this. It's insane that we don't have X. Why hasn't anyone built Y? Why are we still working with this process when we could work with this process? Why haven't we introduced this into that? Why are these people still not receiving blah, blah, blah? You know, those are your fundamental kind of drivers. And if you've got that, you're trying to do it good in the world. So, and then the tech comes with it. So yeah, that's the opposite, or that's the other leg to the operator built startups, where it's like, okay, I like building businesses. I'll go find a need for a business and I'll make a better email campaign tool for them. Great. That's very useful.
Yeah.
But it's not purposeful. It's just useful.
Exactly.
And that's
I
different.
love that.
There's no vengeance there. It's just operations, and very good operators sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
Great. We need them as well. But yeah.
So how can people follow your journey and find out a little bit more about MyCoPilot? Sounds like you can already sign up.
You can sign up if you've got Android.
Yes,
don't tell anyone. But we
won't tell anyone.
We are planning to do a Kickstarter to get an iOS developer.
Nice. Okay.
That's kind of like our next strategy. We think that's going to be really good marketing, and it gets a bit of money for an iOS developer. And we know that people with iOS are like, oh man, like, because the funny thing is, whenever I talk to people about this and I tell the little story that I do, where I'm like, so, you know, the 2 a.m. at TikTok where, you know, you really need to go to bed, and the thing that you really need is a friend or a partner or a lover or your mum to poke their head around the door and go, what are you doing on your phone at 2 a.m.? Come on. Have you done your teeth? Come on, I'm doing my teeth. Come do your teeth. Or if it's a sunny Sunday afternoon, they do the same thing. They're like, what are you doing? It's a sunny Sunday afternoon. Let's go for a bike ride. Come on. I'm going to put my shoes on. Come on. Because that's what gets you off your phone. You know, that it's an oxytocin kick. It's that feeling of community and belonging and relationship. And that's kind of what our AI is trying to build. It's a bit of a functional parasocial relationship. When I tell people that, whether they've got ADHD or not, I tend to get a bit of a laugh. People are like, oh my God, I need that as well. You know, I can say I've got ADHD and, or it's for ADHDs, and they'll be like, oh man, I don't have ADHD, but I could do with that. So I know that's
the Kickstarter.
So the iOS people always go then, when I tell them I haven't got iOS yet and it's only on Android, you can see them visibly deflate. So we really, really, really want to get the iOS version out ASAP. You can already download it on Android though. You can sign up for you can get on our MailChimp, and we'll let you know when the iOS version is, and we'll tell you when the Kickstarter's coming, so that you can get, you know, an upfront ringside seat or whatever it is.
So we'll make
this is
sure
all through the website.
Yeah, cool.
And that's mycopilot.ai. Yeah. The name is the URL. And also we're on TikTok, because let's be honest, TikTok is like the candle to the ADHD. It's not the candle. It's the bonfire to the ADHD moth. There's so many ADHDers on TikTok, and we're all completely lost at 2 a.m. doing that. So we're on TikTok. We haven't been pushing the marketing lately, but we are about to. We're just switching it on. I've recorded a podcast for alanmerrill.com. So it's Al and Merrill. MEREL.com, and that's about the neuroscience of neurodiversity.
Amazing.
And that's being released. I think actually it's being released today. She's doing the ops on it, which is brilliant.
You heard it here.
Out today. Yes, you literally heard it here first. Our TikTok, we're going to be putting more content on there. There's like 12 videos on there already. Somewhat interesting, maybe some of them. But we're about to really invest in the marketing over the summer. We're about to kick it all off. So if you
we'll share the links,
join the MailChimp, or just follow us on TikTok, you will see more and more stuff being released. Also, we've got a YouTube channel. I think right now probably the best thing to do is TikTok or get on our mailing list, because we're about to publicize all the stuff that we're launching.
We will definitely share the links for sure. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. I always learn so much when I talk to you as well, and it was brilliant because you kept answering my questions before I could say them, which was just perfect.
I do love banging on about this. It's probably my absolute favorite thing to do.
Which is why
thank you
we're
very
chatting
much for the opportunity.
Yeah, and just congratulations. Like you know, clearly it's not easy. Doing any business right now is not easy, let alone starting one, let alone doing one that's got a big impact to make on the world and is very personal as well, and you've done amazing, and sharing your journey and seeing how those kind of building blocks are starting to happen. I know.
I'm impatient. I always see the things. I'm like, yeah, but we could be here. We could have done this.
But there's always that, right? And that's
always.
There's always going to be that. And I think, yeah, it's just learning. This is exactly what the podcast is for, is just kind of hearing from other people what their journey's been, what's worked for them, but what hasn't worked, or where the gaps are. So just being you've been so transparent and honest about that as well, which is great. And we look forward to following your journey as well, and obviously celebrating what you do and your wins. So make sure you let me know, but I'll be hounding you otherwise.
Happy days. Yes. Yes, it's always good to have a bottle of bubbly in the fridge and find a reason to open it.
I know, I definitely do that, but it's still in the fridge now.
No, I just sits there for me when I'm like, is this really a justifiable reason to open it? Yeah,
I think it's just doing it on
my team to remind me to have
random occasions. I think is much better approach. But MyCoPilot AI is absolutely in the realms of tech for good, and it being designing around actually what people need, and supporting vulnerable groups, but also vulnerable situation in terms of this kind of digital addiction. So we are very much back in your journey. Wishing you the very best for 2025.
Thank you.
And thank you very much. And thank you to everybody tuning in to the Tech for Good Southwest podcast. And we will be back soon and see you next time.